friends.
So we're going live on our Facebook and on our YouTube to say a very good morning, Mr. Nico Kleynhans.
Good morning to you and also to the listeners. I'm feeling very somber this morning, largely because of two incidents that happened in the past few days.
Yeah.
The first is Mrs. X who phoned me. She had been married for many years. It was a very happy marriage. And her husband passed away. Now, when that happened, of course, she was in deep grief. And when you're in deep grief, you don't always know what to do with the grief. But because you're planning the funeral, the family gather around you and you're very busy planning the funeral. But at some point, the people go home. And now you're alone again. And you suddenly start missing your spouse. He'd been there for most of your life. And you're now finding this emptiness. And that was what she was feeling and feeling really broken. And then the attorney contacted her and he said, you need to come in so I can read you the will. And then she got the shock of her life. Because the only asset that she and her husband had was the house that they had bought together. They married in community of property. So it was her house and his house. That was where she was going to live for the rest of her life. Now, for some reason, he followed a weird tradition that we have in some communities. And that is that the concept of a family home. And what he said was, if I die, the house must go to my eldest son. Now, when you draw up a will, often the person who's drawing up a will do what you ask. They won't check if it's legal. They will just do what you say. And that's what that particular attorney did. Now, you see, in reality, half the house was hers and half the house was her husband's. He can't give away what doesn't belong to him. So in saying that my son inherits the house, as far as the son is concerned, he now owns a house. As far as the widow is concerned, she's lost a house. She no longer can decide which bedroom is hers. She can no longer decide which of her furniture can stay in her house. She can no longer decide when she's going to eat. She can no longer decide what she's going to eat. She now becomes a stranger in her own home. And she's grieving not only the death of her husband, she's now grieving what is happening to her as well. And her problem is, all the son can see is that it is my house. And now she's got to find a way of working with her son and the daughter-in-law. And she's held hostage. And so the question to me, what does she do? Well, the law is simple. That will is invalid. It's as simple as that. The will is invalid, which means she has two options. She's either got to lump it and do what that will says, which is not right, not fair, and not legal, or she's got to go back to an attorney and say this will has got to be declared invalid, which is what she has to do. But if she does that, there's going to be a bad break in her family and her family relationships. And that means there's got to be healing. Now, the problem is a mistake was made. And it's going to take time for that family to recover from that mistake. But I don't think it's fair to take something which is not yours, give it away, and dictate what will happen after your death. There were other options the husband could have said. He could have said, on the death of my wife, the house can go to my son. But he cannot say, on my death, my wife gets disinherited. That cannot be said. So I understand that family is in grief. I understand that family is in pain. But an injustice has been done. And the mother faces a very difficult decision of how she's going to deal with that injustice. The second issue that caused me some stress this week is marriages fail. That happens.
Sadly, but it does.
And we all have an opinion when the marriage that has failed is somebody we all know, because that marriage has always been in the public space. And that marriage has people that we all know about because of social media. And so everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion on why that marriage failed, and everybody has an opinion on what they should have done. When did this become our business? What has that got to do with us? And do we realize what we are doing to that family and to those kids when we express opinions that are that harsh, that are that damaging, and that are then unhelpful? Rather than throwing our opinions at the family, it seems to me more helpful if we were to ask a different question. What would Jesus say in this situation? And it is unlikely that some of the opinions that I have seen would be what Jesus would say. That family needs time to heal. That family needs time to find solutions. That family is mature. They have spent their whole marriage in the public space. Now we need to pull away, and give them time to work out how it's going to look in the future. And we need to give those kids space. We are not being fair to them. We're not being fair to kids. So come on, South Africa. We need to be more kind to people who are hurting. We can't keep doing this to some families. Yeah. It's not fair.
Yeah. Put yourself in their shoes and think, how would you want people around you to treat you? What would you want them to do and say? And remember, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Nico, thank you so much. Appreciate your time this morning.